What's up, everyone? I'm Kyle. This is the Vervet Forest, and I thought today I'd give you a little explanation of the foster mom program, like a deep dive into the foster mom program, if you will, because there's a lot of questions that get asked that are like repeat questions on the videos. So I thought it would be cool to have just like one video that was easy to go to, so you could just sort of find the answer to a lot of the most commonly asked questions about the foster mom program. First off, of course, I want to give a shout out to my top patrons, Mac, Marcia Merlot, Shannon Martinez, Janet Franciscovich, and Stephanie from Australia, Jim and Linda, and Chuck and Di. Thank you all very much for your support. So the foster mom process is a process that helps an orphan baby vervet monkey get adopted by a foster mom vervet monkey and then integrated into a troop here at the Vervet Monkey Foundation. So there's several steps to the whole process. First and foremost, of course, we get a baby in. Whether that be we go out to fetch the baby or someone brings the baby to us, we receive an orphaned baby vervet monkey. And that baby goes to the baby cabin. Now there's two baby cabins, Loveland and Neverland, both named by past volunteers. So in those baby cabins, it basically acts as a quarantine. So a baby will come in, they stay in the baby cabin for a few days where they're checked for any illnesses, if they have any like infections, or if they have any wounds, or if they have ticks or fleas. They also get a fecal sample to see if they have worms or any sort of parasites living inside of them. And then once they're cleared from quarantine, they're sent to Disneyland. Once they end up in Disneyland, the babies stay in Disneyland where they get to bond with other babies and they learn to drink milk from the bottle, and they get introduced to the feeding cage. Now it all depends on the age of the baby. Obviously if a baby comes in at a very young age, they're not going to go straight into the feeding cage. They're going to need maybe a week or two, before they really start getting acclimated to their surroundings, because if they can't even walk, then it's going to be hard. They're going to stay wrapped up in a blanket most of the time. They're going to need a lot of cuddles, and they're going to need just a lot of being force-fed in the beginning milk from the bottle, because not all the babies are willing to drink milk from the bottle, and that process alone can take a lot of time to get them to learn to drink from the bottle and get used to the taste of the soy milk, get used to drinking from the teat. Suckling from a teat is obviously more complicated. It's different than if they were suckling from their mother's nipple. Once they go through that, then they're moved to an intro enclosure that is attached to a troop. That troop will be the troop that they're integrated into. Now, we usually try to move 2 or 3 babies that are around the same age together to an intro enclosure to introduce them to the troop at the same time. Sometimes a baby will move out faster, sometimes they'll stay longer in Disneyland. It all sort of depends on how many babies are around, how many babies are in the intro enclosures of the troops at the time. So once they're moved from Disneyland to the troop intro enclosure, they stay in the intro enclosure with a volunteer for about a week or so, and then making sure that they're drinking from the bottle inside the feeding cage proficiently, and making sure that the interaction with them through the fence to the troop is going all right. At that point, the volunteers then leave the intro enclosure, and the babies are introduced to the moms. So the moms and some of the other members of the troop, the younger females, the very young males, are allowed into the intro enclosure where they get to meet the babies face to face. We try to get the babies a mom at around 6 weeks old. That's about the time that they're beginning to be independent enough to be okay in there with a mom. They're usually good at the feeding cage. They can climb around. They've got their wits about them, is what I'm trying to say, at 6 weeks old. So the moms are then left inside the enclosure to bond with the babies. Sometimes the moms go out, but most of the time they're stuck inside the intro enclosure for the rest of the time until the baby's released out into the troop. But during that time, other monkeys get to come into the enclosure, so the babies get the experience of meeting a lot of members of the troop before they actually head out into the troop. Once the babies are 3 months old and they've bonded with the moms and the troop, they are then released into the troop where they continue to drink milk for the first year of their lives. So you may be wondering why we wait for the babies to be 3 months old before we integrate them into the troop. Now the reason for this is because in the wild, the babies become much more independent after 3 months of age. So this means that the babies will become more willing to leave their mother's side. They're going to be more willing to climb up into the trees on their own. But more importantly, the moms are going to be more willing to allow the babies to leave their side. Because up until 3 months old, the babies are pretty much always clinging to their mom's belly. But after 3 months old, the babies start to leave their mom's belly. They start to eat food on their own. They start to forage, do all those things. And why that's important is because of the feeding cages. Because the baby's main source of protein for the first year of their lives is the milk that we provide them. And because the moms are not lactating to the best of our knowledge, the babies need to be able to access the feeding cage so that they can get a supply of protein, which comes from their soy milk. So when it comes to deciding which troop a baby is going to join, it comes down to a lot of factors. You have to ask how many monkeys are currently in the troop. How many babies has the troop received so far in this baby season? How many babies did they receive last baby season? How many males are in the troop and how many females are in the troop? And is this baby a male or is this baby a female? How close to capacity is the troop in regards to the size of their enclosure? Some enclosures are large, some are small. Some troops have 10 to 12 monkeys, some troops have 30 plus monkeys. So you really have to look at these different factors. There's also the dependency on what time of the season we are in. So some troops like the early season babies. They like the younger babies. Some troops like the older babies. Coco troop has Panikir and Luca, who are great at fostering the first babies of the season, the younger ones, who might be a little more scared or are, not so sure of monkey life yet. Whereas Engelke is great at fostering the older babies. Jesse just loves to take on older babies. The troop in general gets a lot of the more independent babies who are like expats who have come in later. Scro troop is sort of a troop that will accept any baby at any point in time. Bernadette in that troop just loves to foster babies. So there's a lot of different little factors, but you also have to sort of know the troops and understand what sort of baby you're dealing with and what sort of troop they might be good for. I mean, as you can see in season 2 with Vera, she obviously had to go through 3 different troops before she found the right place, and it was because of the fact of like the type of baby that she was and the time that we were in the baby season. So a lot of you ask how we decide which moms are going to adopt which babies. The answer is we don't. They're monkeys. They're wild animals. We don't have control over anything that they decide to do, so we let them make the choice. Now, obviously it's up to us which monkeys are going to be allowed into the enclosures with the babies, but beyond that, it's up to the moms to decide who they want to bond with and the babies to decide which moms they want to bond with. And that's part of the reason we allow the babies to interact with the troop through the fence for about a week or 2 before introducing them inside of the intro enclosure. This allows them to get to know each other, to form little bonds, sort of become interested in one another, and then once they're inside, it works out a little smoother. So there's certain rules to the monkeys that come inside. Obviously, we don't allow the adult males because adult males don't have anything to do with fostering the babies and can cause more conflict if they're inside with a baby alone. So that's a big no-no. Generally, we try and keep juvenile males out as well. Sometimes there's younger males who come in and play. Obviously, like the ones who are under a year old definitely come in and play. It really depends on sort of what their personality type is like, where they are in the social hierarchy, and how old they are. The females all decide who wants to come in. I mean, you got to be conscious of the troop, so the staff members who are on the ropes deciding which females are allowed in are aware of the troop and the hierarchy and where the different females stand with each other. Because of that, they can say like, oh, well, if I let this female in, it's going to cause conflict because this other female's already in the intro enclosure and they don't like each other. So you have to be aware of like personalities and who gets along with who, so you don't put 2 in the enclosure who are going to fight with each other and then the baby gets caught in the middle of that, which is horrible and can cause a lot of problems, obviously. The other thing that happens is that the alpha female is not really ever allowed to stay in for a prolonged period of time. She can come in, the alpha and the second in command can come in and come out. They can meet the babies and stuff like that. Again, with that situation, you got to be very careful with the other females that are inside of the intro enclosure because the alpha female could easily assert her dominance over a younger female. And if that lower ranked female is bonded with the baby and the alpha comes in, that lower ranked female tries to protect the baby, that can be a big issue. So The real reason, though, that the alpha female isn't allowed to stay in for a prolonged period of time with the baby is because if you take the alpha out of the troop and lock her in an enclosure separated from the rest of the troop, that could cause chaos within the troop, because it's going to throw the whole ranking system off balance, because she's not going to be there to deal with conflicts and to assert her dominance and set the authority of what's going on within the troop hierarchy. That doesn't mean that an alpha female can't adopt a baby, because sometimes what happens is she'll come in and out, they'll bond whenever she's in occasionally. The alpha female will hang out by the fence and meet the baby through the fence and groom the baby through the fence, and they'll bond that way. And then when the baby is allowed into the troop with whatever temporary foster mom they've had, the alpha female then adopts the baby from that lower ranked female, because that lower ranked female can't say anything about the alpha female if the alpha female wants to take the baby from her. So that's sort of how the alpha females, or the highest ranked monkeys in the troop, would acquire a baby, is by waiting until the baby is in the troop and then just taking the baby for herself. So how many babies does one female foster? It depends. It varies, like everything. It's totally up to the monkey and the situation at hand. So sometimes you'll have 2 foster moms in with 2 babies, and each one gets 1 baby. Sometimes you have 1 foster mom in with 3 babies, and she goes out with all 3 babies. That doesn't necessarily mean that she's going to stay the mother of all 3 of those babies. Doesn't even mean when they have 2 babies that they're going to stay the mother of both those babies. Generally what happens is the mom who's inside is in because of the factors that I talked about before: the time of the season, what troop we're dealing with, what baby is inside, the temperaments, all that sort of stuff. And so sometimes a lot of females just don't want to come into the intro enclosure, so it works best with just the 1 foster mom being inside and dealing with multiple babies. So in this case, if a single foster mom takes, let's say, 3 babies into the troop, generally she's not going to stay with 3 babies. What'll happen is either she'll be friends with another female, and that other female will help her with the other baby and end up sort of adopting that baby as her own. Sometimes a higher ranking female will steal the baby off of the new foster mom because she's lower ranking, and will take that baby as her own. It happened with Bernadette this past year. Bernadette fostered I don't know how many babies on her own. It was Paco and Diane at first, and Baba Cool, and she didn't get to keep any of those babies when she went out into the troop. They all got taken from her. And so when she came back in and finally got to spend time with Vera and Diane later on, she was adamant. You could see how protective of these babies she was, because she just wanted to have a baby finally in the end. So yeah, it's totally dependent. I think that's kind of the answer to a lot of these questions, is it depends on the monkeys. How long do the moms stay in the enclosure with the babies? So like I said, the babies are introduced to the mom at around 6 weeks old, and they go out into the troop with the mom at around 3 months old. So basically, you're looking at about 1.5 months to 2 months that a foster mom is in an enclosure with an orphan. Now, the mom doesn't necessarily stay in the enclosure for that entire period of time, but sometimes they do. Some females love being in intro enclosures, and that's part of the reason they like adopting babies so much, is because they get to be inside of an intro enclosure where they get food and they get shelter, and that's why you see a lot of the lower ranked females coming in to adopt babies. Even though they eventually lose the babies when they're out in the troop to the higher ranked females, just the fact that they get that little bit of a vacation and that privacy from the intensity of troop life is enough to make them want to stay in the intro enclosure. But they do get to come in and out, and there's other monkeys always coming in and out. But for the most part, we try to keep the foster moms in the enclosure for as long as possible in order to enforce that bond with the babies. So what if a baby doesn't bond with a mom? First of all, we don't really allow that to happen. I mean, I know I say we don't have control over all of the choices the moms make, but we keep trying. As you saw with Vera, we kept trying until she found someone, maybe not necessarily a foster mom, but someone who was going to bond closely with her and help her out in the troop and take care of her and give her that motherly support that she needs until she gains independence. But the other most important side of the foster mom program is getting these babies to bond with the troop, getting them to bond with the monkeys in the troop so that they have a family, so that they have the comfort and the security, so that when they go out into the troop, they know that there's going to be other monkeys there to support them, that they're going to have that love and comfort, they're going to get hugs, they're going to get food shared with them, they're going to learn how to climb, they're going to learn about alarm calls, they're going to learn about fighting, they're going to learn about playing. All those things don't just come from the foster mom, they come from the community. And so it's really about making the baby bond with the community, but of course it's very essential for the baby to bond with a foster mom as much as possible, just so that they can have that comfort and that love of a mother. So in the end, if the baby takes themselves out into the troop, it's generally not a big deal. We saw that with, I think, Leo and Freya in this past season in Engelkey troop. They just went out into the troop on their own, but they were two babies who had bonded with like 5 different foster moms and just sort of got along with a lot of different females. And so they weren't really uncomfortable in the troop. They just sort of, they were older. They were like, 5 months old, 4 months old when they went out into the troop. And they had been pets at one point, so they were bigger than the other babies. They had a lot of confidence. They weren't so clingy to the foster moms, so it's not so big of a deal for them at that point. They're not craving that constant attention and affection and that need to grab on to a mom's belly. They're much more independent. They can walk around and do their own thing, and they had friends and they had moms that were interested, so it worked out just fine for them. So do the moms stay with the babies once they're out in the troop? When a baby goes into a troop with its foster mom, that's its mom, that's its family. The baby adopts the rank of their foster mom. A baby will stick in that family group for the rest of their lives. That's how the social hierarchy of Vervet Monkeys functions. A baby is born into a family, they adopt the rank of their mother, and they stay within that rank their entire lives unless they're challenged by another female. Males adopt the rank of their mother when they're younger, but as they get older, they sort of veer away from the social hierarchy that they were born into. And at 5 years of age, they end up leaving their troop and they go venture off looking for other troops and females to mate with. So with the females, they don't necessarily fight for rank the same way that the males do, but you will see sort of a more subversive change in the social hierarchy. It's more like you have these family groups within the hierarchy. So you have like family A, then family B, then family C, and within those families, you have its own little set of hierarchy based on like birth order. So what you find is that a female or a family group can be pushed out of their ranking in the hierarchy if another family group grows stronger, whether that be through numbers in the family group. So say like family group A is the top ranking, but that female has 1 baby over the span of 5 years, and then family group B is the second ranking family, but they have like 4 babies over the span of 5 years. As they grow up, that family group is going to be stronger and more dominant than family group A, so family group B will eventually surpass family group A and take over in dominance. Also, if the alpha gets sick or weak, we've seen it here sometimes where a female was injured for a period of time or was sick for a period of time, and as she was sick and injured, she couldn't sort of dominate within the altercation. She couldn't assert her dominance, and so we found that the lower ranking family groups were sort of shifting and the top ranking family group was shifting out because that female didn't have old enough females to sort of like stand up for her or stand up for their family group. And so that's one way, or a pretty common way, that a high ranking female will be usurped and a lower ranking family group will take the throne. So now with the males in the troop, they sort of find their dominance level within the troop when they're younger, but it's not until they're 5 years old and they're moving on to other troops that they really start to assert their dominance and fight for their place in the social hierarchy and find where they stand within their new troops. So do the males foster the babies, or do they ever come into the intro enclosure? No. The babies are never fostered by male adult monkeys, and the adult male monkeys never come into the intro enclosure. It's just not safe. You'll generally see the females actually fighting off the males to protect the babies. Like I said, the males sort of exist within their own hierarchy. Their job in the troop is more to like patrol the perimeter, give warnings of predators, of other males, of any sort of threats they're approaching, and just protect the troop as a whole, whereas the females are the ones who are dealing with the whole family situation. Now that doesn't mean that the males aren't social within the hierarchy, but it just means that they're not exactly involved in the lives of the babies and the females in the same way that the females are involved in lives with each other and with the babies. So the males are also very protective of the babies as long as they know that the babies are a member of their troop, because the males are just protective of the troop in general. This is sort of why it's so important for the babies to bond with the females and to be obviously a part of the troop, because the males don't know who their baby is. Vervet males have sex with a lot of the females in the troop, and so they're not going to go like, oh, well, that's Susan's baby, and I don't remember having sex with Susan, so that's not my baby, so I'm going to beat up that baby. It's more like, oh, Susan's a part of my troop, and that baby is bonded with Susan, so that's probably my child. They're not the smartest, but it works for them. Now, sometimes when the babies are in the troop, you will see them interacting with the males. They'll be a little bit nurturing to them. Sometimes you'll see the babies grooming the males or a male grooming a baby, but it's never anything like too hectic in the bonding. It's not like huge emotions or anything. It's just very simple interactions. The females are pretty weary of the males with their babies anyway, and you will often see females chasing the males off from interacting with the babies. But once the babies become juveniles, they definitely start to interact more with the males, and you'll see them playing a little bit more and just having fun. And especially if the juvenile is a male juvenile, they pick up a lot of influence from the adult males and sort of learn how to function within the troop from interacting and hanging out with the adult male vervets. What food do the babies eat? What food do the monkeys eat? For the most part, what they get is all the local foods that we can source for them, and then also all the indigenous foods that we can source for them. So when I say local, I mean like we are surrounded by farms. This area, Zanin, Limpopo, is really well known in South Africa for just its produce. And when you drive around here, you look around, it's just farms, 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 farms. So a lot of the food that's grown and a lot of food that's given to the monkeys are mangoes and papaya and avocado and banana and spinach and cabbage. They get lentils, they get sprouted lentils, they get split peas, they get pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, oats, apples, green beans, squash, pumpkin, veggies, fruits. On the other side, they forage for a lot of their own stuff, and in the troops, if they don't have forage available on their trees because they've already foraged it all, then we supplement it in. So seed pods from the local trees. There are acacia trees everywhere, a wide variety of acacia trees. Those all have tons of seed pods on them. Berries that grow naturally all around here on the trees. I'm like looking around at the trees around me right now trying to think about it. Yeah, berries, what else? The grasses, all the time eating grass. They love the grass shoots, seed pods, grass seeds. They eat a lot. They eat all the time. They eat when they're nervous. You'll always see vervets eating. It's funny because you'll see them like, you'll see a baby get nervous and they just like search quickly and pick up the first thing they can, and they just start like staring at you wide-eyed and munching on whatever. It might not even be something edible. It might be like an old dried out leaf or something, but like it's something for them to crunch on. It's how they quell their anxiety, which I'm sure many people can relate to. And then they also eat insects. I've seen them catch giant bugs, like giant ants. I've seen them catch lizards and eat those, birds, eggs. A lot of the times they'll eat insects out of rotting fruit. They will not really eat frogs. I see them play with frogs, and they're more scared of frogs and worried about them. And frogs can be poisonous, so I think they're smart enough to stay away from that. Snakes they definitely stay away from. Birds are rare. Birds are like, if they can catch it, if the bird is injured, if it's like stuck in their enclosure or something. But you will see that happen. I've posted some videos of that on the Instagram. Grasshoppers are the funniest because they just like, the monkeys hop with the grasshoppers trying to catch them. And then the other best one, my favorite one to watch them try to eat, is termites, because during the rainy season, the beginning of the rainy season, the termites just start flying everywhere, and you'll get these giant clouds of termites, and you just see the monkeys like running on their two legs, just trying to grab everything and like swiping termites out of the sky and stuff, and it's pretty funny. But yeah, that's what they eat, and most of the food that we give them comes from local farms. A lot of it's waste produce, so it's like food that can't be sold to market because it's not up to quality. Doesn't mean it's gone bad. It just means it has blemishes or it's not the right size or something. So there's a lot of that, which we get at a discounted rate. Sometimes it's waste produce that's just like waste produce, and we get that for free. Other times we have to buy the products, and then sometimes some of the supermarkets, if they have a stock that has gone bad and can't be sold, then they'll give us that stock for free. But it varies, and it makes it difficult, and not everyone wants to support the monkeys, especially because a lot of the farmers claim that the monkeys are destroying their livelihood, so why would they give up their waste produce to, support something that they consider to be destroying their livelihood? So it's tough. You will see times of feast and you will see times of famine. It all depends on the situation, and it's never predictable, and I'd say that's like one of the greatest causes of stress in Dave's life, is just like sourcing food for the monkeys. I mean, when you're feeding almost 600 monkeys, that's a lot of mouths to feed and bellies to fill up, and you're feeding them twice a day, and they need a varied diet, and yeah, it's a lot of food, it's a lot of work. So that's where a lot of the money goes, is like donations and stuff, is to food. And then on top of that, the cost of gas, because we're in the countryside, and if you live in the countryside, you'll know that like you are very quickly isolated. And so it's like, oh, we have this great opportunity to go pick up squash, and the farmer's going to give us squash for free, but it's, an hour away. So that's 2 hours back and forth. And so that's a lot of gas that gets eaten up in a pickup truck with a trailer behind it filled with fruit and veggies. So it's not a cheap endeavor to keep all of these monkeys fed and happy. But it works out, and thankfully there's a lot of local people who are willing to donate and keep us going. So yeah, I think that covers most of the basics. I think that covers a lot of the most commonly asked questions about the foster mom program. I hope I didn't miss anything. I hope I answered questions that you might have had, that you had asked in the past or you had never thought about. But yeah, I guess somebody's for sure going to be like, hey, but what about this? And I'm going to be like, oh yeah, guess I'll have to do another one of these at some point. Oh, my palms are sweaty. That just made my face wet. That was gross. Anyway, see y'all later.